Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I wanted today to revisit a video I did, and I'm going to rant a little bit, but I want to revisit a video I did a while back that got brought up in a private group that I post in, and actually a number of people like Alan Aragon and actually a couple of steroid experts and stuff got involved in this debate, and some dumbasses got in it also, people who were saying things like powerlifters don't train for maximum hypertrophy and other bullshit. And try to tell me, oh, this is a bodybuilding conversation when they were talking about my video. So fuck you guys, I'll set the tone of the conversation of my own video. But it was basically people trying to argue that I am arguing for low extremes of protein intake for enhanced users, for steroid users who are trying to gain muscle. And I don't feel that I am, because all of the protein recommendations I make for both drug-free lifters as well as enhanced lifters are considered very high protein by nutritional standards. Not RDA standards, but by nutritional standards in general for athletes. And the fact of the matter is, there's this obsession with protein intake with steroids, and I just don't think it's warranted. The body can only build so much muscle in a day. You can only utilize so much protein for building muscle mass in a 24-hour period, no matter how much shit you shoot into your butt cheeks. I'm sorry, there are limits. And feeding more protein to it isn't going to increase that limit very much. And if we want to go with anecdote, there have been plenty of very, very big bodybuilders who ate 150 grams of protein. I myself, when I was bigger and younger, experimented around back and forth between going up to 500 or 600 grams of protein versus dropping down to 150, and I couldn't tell any difference in my muscle gains or strength gains on the same amount of anabolics. I just couldn't. There didn't seem to be a difference, and I know plenty of guys who've experienced this. And we have plenty of studies showing guys eating 100 grams of protein that when they increase the testosterone doses, they gain muscle faster. And you got guys gaining muscle on 100 grams of protein, gaining muscle faster than noob gains, meaning they're gaining more than 2 pounds of muscle per month. There were guys gaining like 3 and 4 pounds of muscle per month, according to DEXA scans, on 100 grams of protein while using steroids, because they were smaller individuals. So at what point do people think that you need to start adding another 100 or 200 grams to whatever you're consuming? Does anybody really think that they're going to gain 7, 8, 10 pounds of muscle per month on gear? If you think you're going to do that, you're fucking stupid. You're not going to gain that much muscle on there. And you've got to remember, most of that protein is going to metabolic functions. A little bit is going to build muscle mass. But realistically, even on steroids, the odds that more than about 40 or 50 grams of the protein that you eat per day is actually contributing to building muscle is just, it really doesn't make sense. It's not logical. And it's always, well, we need more just to be sure. Well, because it increases possible protein intake. Well, no, it actually increases feed efficiency, so you absorb more protein more efficiently. You utilize protein more efficiently for building muscle mass, the same amount of protein, and you break less protein down. Your body wastes less protein when you're on anabolics or testosterone, and the more you take, the more efficient it becomes at it. And all the research shows this in people with muscle wasting diseases, people who they want to rebuild muscle on quickly after they lost a lot of muscle for whatever reason, anemia or HIV or whatever. We know that from those studies, that that's what happens. And they regain muscle, large, very massive amounts of muscle on protein intakes that would be considered low for naturals in the bodybuilding world, but are considered high in the nutrition world. And I'm not saying that people don't have the right to take high amounts of protein. If someone wants to eat 400 or 500 grams of protein per day when they're on gear, that's their prerogative. I'm cool with that. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. It's your money, it's your dietary choices, your food choices, that's cool. But when people are telling other people that if they aren't eating these 300 grams of protein or 400 grams of protein, that they're wasting their gear, is just silly. No, you're wasting these people's money and resources by telling them they have to do something that is really a personal preference. Because we don't have data supporting it. The anecdote shows that people make just as good a gains very frequently on much, much, much lower intakes. And all people have is a hypothetical theory that, well, they improve muscle protein synthesis, so if you take a lot more protein, you'll benefit from it. That's not necessarily logical, because you also know that you utilize what you take in more efficiently and you break down less of what's already in your body. You don't necessarily have to increase it dramatically to maximize the results. There's no reason or logical reason to think that you would have to. And then when it comes down to an issue of efficiency, this is where we get into pragmatism. Everybody's on a budget. Unless you're wealthy, you're on a budget. And if you're already using gear, let's say a person is throwing 750 milligrams of testosterone into their body every week. Relatively high dose. It's not a massive dose. It's definitely in the YouTube natty range. And they're eating 150 grams of protein. And someone says, well, they need to bump it to 300 grams. Well, unless you're doing it through cheap-ass whey protein, which we know is oftentimes has heavy metals in it, according to all the stuff we've seen. Cheap whey protein, really cheap whey protein, tastes like ass. A very high percentage are lactose intolerant. If you were to add 150 grams of protein from whey protein to your diet, you're going to get diarrhea in the shits. You're going to feel bad. It's not necessarily the best way to do it. So if we're talking about getting it from Whole Foods, in average in America, just where about 40% of my audience is, you're talking about around $100 per month to add that to your diet. In the UK, it could be like $200. In other places in Europe, $200 or $300. So let's go back and let's take that same $100 for a person who's already using gear, an efficient use of your money. You don't have evidence that adding that 150 grams of protein is going to make a noticeable difference. It's just hypothetical that it might. There's no evidence that it will. But we know that more testosterone will always equal more gains. All the studies do show that. There are diminished returns, but the more they take, the more gains they get. How much pharmaceutical grade testosterone can someone buy for $100? Well, if you're in the United States or you're in the UK, where it's more expensive, now a lot of people in Australia pay a lot more, but they're the exception. People in Eastern Europe and Asia pay pennies. So for them, $100 a month would be enough to, fuck themselves up. They couldn't even inject that much. You don't have the injection sites for $100 of testosterone a month if you live down in, Eastern Europe or Asia. So let's go with countries where it is more expensive, like the US, the UK, where I happen to live, where it's legal. That's an amp of pharmaceutical grade Sustanon runs on average about $5, and people who are paying more, well, you're getting fucked. That's 20 amps a month. That comes out to about 5 amps a week, or around 1,250 milligrams a week. So if you go for the same amount of money, that protein increase would cost, person goes from 750 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. Which one's going to be a better use of their $100? Which one's going to give them more muscle mass, more strength, more gains? I'm going to venture to say that $100 spent on more pharmaceutical grade testosterone is probably going to give them a hell of a lot more muscle mass than adding that extra protein in will. So when we're being pragmatic, let's forget optimal, because you're never going to find optimal. Let's talk about efficient allocation of resources. That $100 could be a hell of a lot better spent for an enhanced lifter. Alright guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. But let me give you guys a bicep shot before I go. And yes, I'm wearing this because it is cold.